Hello, everybody on YouTube and hopefully on ROKFIN as well. We started on locals. And as you saw, the topic of this is I was recently suspended. And if you've only been following me on YouTube, you didn't know that. Why? Because I was not allowed to tell you. I have been locked out of my channel for several days. Take a sip of my coffee here. The only people who knew were on ROKFIN, ODYSEE, locals, and Patreon. Because YouTube, when they suspend you, they don't let you tell your audience. So the first thing I wanted to say is I hope that this is an opportunity to really go to one of my other platforms. All right. The links are in the description. One of my last videos, I was very clear, I think like 2 live streams ago. That's why I've been nuking my live streams on YouTube and sending people over because I knew this was going to happen. It's like once you get the target on your back, they just are going to keep coming for you. And so even though I'm going to tell you what happened, which is going to be a lot of old news for some of the people watching on ROKFIN and locals and ODYSEE, but I'm going to go through what happened because there is no celebration in the fact that I'm live streaming right now. Okay. Other than there have been amazing people who have come to my defense and have complained and rallied against YouTube such that they quietly reversed their decision that originally they said broke their community guidelines, which let's all remember, I'm going to tell you real fast. The video in question, rule breakers, you'll see it, it's the last video on my channel, was showing NBC and CNN videos, showing how they can break YouTube's rules while YouTube targets independent creators. And they literally proved my point because did they go after those original videos and remove them from CNN and NBC's channels? No. Did they give CNN and NBC a strike? Not that I know of. Did they suspend me for showing those videos? Yes. So literally, they proved the point of my video by suspending me for content that was on a corporate news site for a video about how corporate news can do whatever they want without consequence and independent creators have a bullseye on their back. When life imitates art. Okay? Now, like I said, the big celebration is there are amazing people on my other platforms. And I got to say, really like high five to folks on Twitter. Matt Orfala, who I've had, actually, he was in the video that got removed. Independent creator himself, dealing with a lot of BS from YouTube himself, was one of the staunchest defenders of mine. And so I can't thank him enough, along with everybody else who has been retweeting and demanding answers from YouTube. And I actually found out that Reclaim the Net was looking into this, and they contacted YouTube for a statement. And then YouTube's statement was, the video has been reinstated. That's it. Why? Okay. What? See, there are 2 huge problems here. The first is that if this is what it takes to, if this is what it takes, this kind of public outcry and this kind of pressure is what it takes to babysit YouTube in their decision making. No small, or small-ish creator has the kind of time and energy to constantly be hawkish over YouTube and do this kind of stuff. I don't have attorneys. I don't have lobbyists. So, you're basically stuck here just waging Twitter wars, wondering what's going to happen. And it's a terrible way to do business, because, well, first off, it takes your energy away from other places. But secondly, you're at the end of the day, like if there had been another force that was trying to keep me off more than the people who were trying to get me back on, I still would have lost. The only reason in this particular case that I won was because it was a stupid decision on YouTube's part to suspend me, and nobody was fighting to keep me from being reinstated. And there were a lot of people who wanted to see me back on my channel. And so because they were louder, they won. But this is a terrible way. First off, if YouTube wants to continue joking around, seriously, it's a joke. If they want to keep joking around about community guidelines related specifically to COVID or anything else that has to do with science, this is not about science. Okay. If it was about science, then they would have had a set of balls and kept me out of my channel. But they don't. They're spineless. They're totally spineless and they make their decisions based on whoever is more powerful. At this particular point in time, the power stick was wielded by people who appreciate my work and appreciate speech, diversity of speech on these platforms, and stuck up for me. But, let's just say my old employer or like, CNN or something was like, no, she sucks. She used one of our videos and she should be taken off or something like that. I'm sure I would have lost. I'm sure that I still would be locked out of my channel. And keep in mind, I wouldn't be talking to you until probably Friday or Saturday of next week because I was going to be locked out for an entire week. And it's going to happen again. So there's literally, like, when it comes to the decision and my ability to be here right now, there is no celebration in that itself because it will happen again. I will get another strike. I will be suspended again, and eventually I will lose my channel. I'm not saying this like to be like fear mongering or anything. I'm just being honest with you guys. If you haven't gone over to my other platforms, you just won't know. And at some point, like if I get, when, I'm sure it's going to happen. Like I said, I get 2 strikes in 1 week after never getting anything. It's pretty obvious once they pick you, you're on their list, and whether it's AI or whatever, like you're now at the top of their naughty list and their target is on you. And so I don't know what you guys are waiting for. I don't have any sympathy for people who complain about this stuff and don't take any action to go somewhere else. There are a lot of people on my other platforms who have inconvenienced themselves, and really it ends up being a win for everybody, frankly, because they go over to places where there are amazing creators who far preceded me on their content, and truth telling that would never be able to be on YouTube. They got kicked off long ago. And this isn't a new problem for them. They probably don't even talk about this anymore. I'm sure they don't even talk about this that often anymore because they're just like, yeah, I'm doing something else now. And I'm hoping that I'm going to stop talking about, getting suspended and stuff soon too. Like, I'm hoping this is one of my last videos about it. And I'm just going to be like, oh, it's raining. Okay. Whatever, move on. And actually I like rain, so it's probably a bad example. If YouTube's guidelines about science related topics, okay, which they say COVID is, and they struck me for medical misinformation. That's what they said my strike was for. If this is really based on science, then they should have stuck by their decision, but they didn't stick by their decision, and they didn't even tell me about it. They just quietly reversed their decision and they took my strike away. So now I'm back to having a warning, and my video's back. Whoops. But I'm going to show you real fast, what it took, because I hate Twitter, to be honest with you. And if I never went on Twitter ever again, I would be really happy, actually. Okay. But you can't fight these battles, unfortunately, without doing the Twitter war. And in a second, I'm going to close this out by telling you guys a story about when I was an environmental reporter, and it became very clear to me that a lot of these big decisions about science are made because of political pressure or pressure of some kind, whoever's in power. Okay. And how this is just another example of that. And it really makes you, if you're somebody like me who wants to believe that people can rise to the occasion and have integrity, it's depressing. It's a little depressing. And I'll tell you about that story in a second. Cause I saw it firsthand after a story that I did, back when I was an environmental reporter, and it was, I did a story and this crazy decision was reversed, and I'm sitting here like, okay, so that's all I have to do. Some people might celebrate that, but I don't. I didn't look back and say, oh, look at my reporting, it changed this. When it came to a governmental decision that was supposed to be based in science and policy, and then all I do is a story where the public freaks out and then they change their minds, like that. What kind of trust does that instill in our institutions? if you can just create a fuss and change things like that, like, is it great that you can? I mean, I guess so. Do you think then about all the other times that these decisions are made where you're not paying attention and terrible decisions are made, and unless you're vigilant every second of every day, as vigilant as the big corporations are, as vigilant as the lobbyists, as vigilant as the government politicians, if you're not constantly hounding them and raising hell, how many bad decisions are being made? So there's no celebration in the mob being able to change things, because it's related to like there's science, and this is what has to happen. This is truth. We're protecting people. No, you're not. If you were, then you would have stood by your decision. Anyway, let me just show you real fast what's going on here. I'm gonna share my screen and sorry. Okay. So like this is insane. I don't ever get like hundreds of retweets and stuff. Okay. But this is the one awesome thing about the people that I have had supporting me over the last few days. And so this is Matt Orfla's channel or Twitter. The insanity continues. YouTube just suspended Allison Morrow after removing a video of us discussing how corporate news can break YouTube's rules, showing how corporate news spread COVID misinformation. Instead of suspending CNN, Allison is now suspended for exposing them. Now, I want to go to my profile. Okay. By the way, thanks for everybody who's now following me on Twitter. My new followers after all this. But Twitter still sucks. But anyway, but at least they haven't booted me yet, so I could tell people about this. Again, just plugging that you should go to my other platforms. The links are in the description. I started out live on Locals early, so everybody is watching right now there. Again, there's ROKFIN. ODYSEE is taking this stream right now. Okay, I'm going to just go to my original tweet about this. Okay. After exposing how corporate news is allowed to break YouTube's COVID misinformation rules by showing videos still up on NBC and CNN channels, YouTube has suspended me, not them. This proves my point. YouTube targets independent creators and leaves legacy press alone. If you want to see the video YouTube removed, it's here on Library, which is ODYSEE. The deck is stacked. It should be clear to anyone breathing that this is not about silencing dangerous ideas or misinformation. This is about protecting a specific class of information disseminators. And finally, to all my former peers in mainstream media, it's time to get real about dangers a communication oligarchy poses and stop cheering censorship. It's embarrassing and antithetical to journalism. And my original tweet, thanks to people like Robert Barnes, Viva Frey, Matt Orfla, and I saw it even got liked by Jimmy Dore. Thanks to these people, all the people who have retweeted it, hundreds of people who have been asking YouTube for answers, people like Matt who contacted Reclaim the Net and Reclaim the Net, working on something and contacting YouTube. I'm back, but again, this is gonna happen again. And you know what? To quote one of my Locals subscribers, Bob Whittlefish, was saying how, you know what? I'm going to just go look at it. I'm going to read it to you exactly, because why don't I just show you? Hang on a second. Because that way I don't misquote him. Okay. Stand by. And I shouldn't be using Google either. I'm going to start using a different search engine. Screw them. Okay. Hang on a second. Hang on, everybody. I just want to make sure I get to the right. Here we go. Okay. Bob says, arbitrary enforcement isn't a bug. It's a feature. Because remember, I was talking about the arbitrary enforcement of YouTube's community guidelines. So he says, arbitrary enforcement isn't a bug. It's a feature. Totalitarian regimes throughout history have used arbitrary enforcement to cow the masses by making them self-censor, since they have no way of knowing how the rules will be enforced. And that's so true, because that's exactly what happens. It's like getting shocked in some kind of science experiment where you don't know what you're doing when the shock goes off, and so then you're just paralyzed. right? So you're just like, well, I shouldn't talk about this and I shouldn't talk about that. So before I get to my final story, and then I'm going to cut this. Here's the deal. Moving forward, I haven't totally decided exactly how I'm going to handle this, but it's highly likely that if you're watching on YouTube, which I don't know why you are, I appreciate the chat, but I got to be honest with you. I hope you guys are already signed up. I know a lot of you are already signed up on my other platforms, but please, thank you, Ernest. Thank you. I appreciate the super chat. Damn, Allison on the warpath. Hell yeah. Go get him, girl, or just stick to making Airstream videos or sick your producer on them. Yeah, actually, I am one of my announcements you guys are going to find. I know I've been saying this, but actually by midweek or late next week, my Airstream channel is going to be live. And I'm going to use it as my subversive way to stay in contact. It's going to be all Airstream and off-grid living type stuff. But like at the end, I might hold up like a hostage sign, if something's happening on my other channel so that you guys know, and then, play like some nice classical music or something, and then they won't know. But FYI, it's likely from here on out, my YouTube videos are going to be like 1 to 2 minutes long. I may do, a few minutes, like if there was a live stream that's, not necessarily super controversial. I may do 10 minutes or something. I'm still going to not do the whole thing on YouTube. I'm still going to push everybody elsewhere. But a lot of my videos are just going to be really, really short on here. And I feel really good, actually. I mean, I know it's like, I at first I was like kind of perturbed when all this happened, but I've been doing a lot of praying about, what the future holds, where I belong, like what the point is, because it's stressful doing this sometimes. And I'm not going to just do it for shits and giggles. I'm definitely not doing it to make money. I've been wondering like where do I belong and like, what's the point here? And this has really helped me because it's confirmed for me that, I'm moving in the right direction, not trying to make it on YouTube. It sucks because when you first get on YouTube, and still now I have friends who are doing really well, and it's like, oh, the silver plaque and making it on YouTube. But this whole thing has made me feel really gross about YouTube. They're just like the just dirty old uncle, you like have to see at cocktail parties, but you just like avoiding like the plague. So you're not going to get a whole lot of great content here. I'm sorry. And I don't know if that just means my channel is not going to grow at all. I hope you go elsewhere. But I'm just not, I'm trying to figure out, I'm not trying to self-censor in that sense, really. I mean, maybe I am, maybe you would call it that. But part of me looks at it like, screw them. They, okay, I'm not like, it feels like this desperation of a high school couple where like one or the other, the guy or the girl is like, oh, please, please, will you go to prom with me? And I'm like, you know what, YouTube, if you don't want to go to prom, then, piss up a flagpole. I don't care. I don't want to go to prom with you anyway. So go to my other channels. Okay. Last story, before we go. Oh, actually, I'm going to promote my wine sponsor. Okay. Cause YouTube's decision to not let me in my channel did not allow me to promote my wine sponsor, AllisonWinePromo.com, ALISON 1L, AllisonWinePromo.com, 50% off the wine and 50% off shipping. Some amazing Argentinian Malbecs, one from the 3rd highest vineyard in the world. And it sucks when you have a company that wants to sponsor you on YouTube and then YouTube blocks you out of your channel and you can't tell people about your sponsor. So I appreciate everybody who has been on my other platforms buying my wine to prove that YouTube cannot beat me and just, ruin one of the very few sources of income that a small creator has. So I appreciate that. But anyway, check out Allison Wine Promo. Actually, I think Lynn may have made me, I have to look at my banners. Oh, hell yeah. How does this look? AllisonWinePromo.com. So there you go. And check it out. Okay, final story. When I was an environmental reporter, and you guys could look this up, I think you could find it online, unless it's been taken off because my old newsroom has switched web providers so many times that I don't know. It may not still be there, but you could find the story. You just may not be able to find my my original story about it. This is from a few years ago. There was a wildlife rehab facility that had a bunch of deer and an elk, and they had rescued them. There were many of them were orphaned, and the state comes in and inspects every once in a while and makes sure everything okay. And they see that some of these deer are habituated to humans. They'll come up and eat out of your hand or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they had determined that they were too habituated to humans and that it was against the law for a rehab to have them there because they can't be released back to the wild because they're too habituated to humans, and you can't have wildlife as a possession and as a pet, basically, in Washington. And one day I'll tell you the story about May the raccoon. Okay, that was quite an interesting story. Look up May, M-A-E, the raccoon, if you're interested in that one. But so I do this story. So, okay, what happens is the state goes to this wildlife rehab facility. They see that these animals are habituated to humans. They've decided that. And they just make the decision they're going to euthanize them with no opportunity for the rehab to appeal or defend themselves or have any due process for what happened on their property. The state just came in, rounded up as many as they could, and killed them. Okay? I think they got 4. The rest of them, there were a dozen, and I think 8 were apparently not as habituated to humans as they had originally said because they couldn't get close enough to kill them. So, but they did euthanize these 4, I think it was 3 deer and 1 elk. I do the story about it. People lose their minds, okay? The public backlash is rough. The Department of Fish and Wildlife is under the thumb now, right, of public pressure. And so even though they had said they were going to go back and get the rest of those animals, another day, they reversed their decision. And they decided that they were not going to go kill the rest of the animals. Now, if you're the reporter on the story, as I was, there are 2 ways to look at this. One is very egocentric. Oh, look at my reporting. I prompted public backlash and the state changed its mind. That's not the way I looked at it. The way I looked at it was, so this decision, this irreversible decision, okay? This irreversible decision that whatever you think about deer and elk, okay, look, first off, maybe you even like to eat them. Can't eat those, okay, because they were euthanized. So they weren't even food. Whatever you think about this, they gave the rehab no chance to defend themselves. So basically it showed that they had believed their biology, their science, okay, that you can't release a habituated deer or elk back into the wild, and the law that they said, prevented that. The science and the law, okay, these were the 2 things that they cited. They just changed their minds when people were pissed, when enough people were pissed. Okay, so what? Is it science and law? Or is it just that people were finally paying attention to your decision-making? What kind of trust should we have in these institutions if that's what happens? If you can get pissed enough that they're like, oh, okay, we won't do it. Well, first off, their changing their decision didn't do anything for those dead animals. And it also didn't do anything for the rehab facility that went through that whole process. I don't know where that stands now, because I remember that became a huge point of controversy for the state. And I remember going to commission meetings before I quit my job and hearing it being talked out. But that's a mess. It's a mess when you have that kind of power held by so few people and their decisions are not based in the science and the law that they say. It's whoever is breathing down their throat the most. And who is that usually? The people in power. It's sad to me, not a celebration that a mob just comes after YouTube or the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll change our minds. We'll change our minds about science, our science, and our law, our policy that we said we had to follow. Well, you didn't have to follow it because you changed your mind when enough people were paying attention." Like I said, on one hand, I'm glad that we have the ability to band together, and that's been the only win in all this, again, is to see how we can use their own system to fight them back. But it's not a win for me to be reinstated because YouTube's stupid community guidelines are not about science and not about the law. They're just about whoever is pissed at them the most or pressuring them the most, and that's always going to be the government or corporations at their level. It's very rarely are we going to see instances like this where and again, like I said, if I were up against one of those oligarchs, do you think I would still be here? No. It's just because there was nobody trying to keep me off. Because look at Trump. I mean, this is a great example. There were a lot of people who wanted him reinstated, but there were a lot of more powerful people that wanted him off. So anyway, here we are. That was my final story for you. Again, the moral of the story here is go to one of my other platforms. If you're not watching on ROKFIN or Locals or ODYSEE, then I got nothing for you. This should be a lesson to all of us. And frankly, I like it over there better. I like it better on these other platforms. I enjoy the experience better as a creator. The support from the few people who are, not few in the sense of like I have thousands of people who are watching on these other platforms, but it's small compared to my subscribers on YouTube. But each one of them is worth exponentially more when it comes to the support, not just financially, because if $1, it's crazy how to make like $1 on YouTube requires like hundreds of views, whereas one person can give $1, on these other platforms, and you get the full dollar, and so it's not just from like a financial standpoint, it's from, a community perspective. From a community perspective, I just like it better on these other platforms. It's just a better experience. And I know that I have access to my community whenever I want. And so do they, because there's no Wizard of Oz behind the curtain that's trying to manipulate everything to suppress speech. And there are a lot of people, the vast majority of people that choose to go to these platforms are interested in diverse ideas and having conversations that we're not allowed to have on these other platforms. So with that, I'm going to quit my YouTube stream. I'm going to still be live on ROKFIN and Locals. So if you're watching on YouTube, I hope to see you over there. But I'm removing you from the stream now. So have a great rest of your day, guys.